You can run this audit on anything. It doesn't have to be just your website. You can run your competition's web pages through this too if you want to kind of reverse engineer them or. Hey everyone, Jesse Dolan and Bob Brennan here again with Local SEO Tactics. And this week we're going to be talking about actual on-page SEO, not so much the Google My Business anymore. We've done that for the last 4 weeks roughly, with the first 3 being about the Google My Business page optimization, setup, things like that. And then last week we talked about reviews. This week we're going to dig into the website. So we're going to kind of start from the beginning. If you have a website right now, you should be able to follow along, apply some of these tactics. If you don't yet have a website, you can still take all this in, jot some notes down, and this should help you prepare on how to go get your website and set it up for the first time.
And I can just make a few quick comments. Some of this may be a little bit dry and pretty technical.
Right.
And those of us that are in the ADD world, this may be difficult for us to follow along. But I can tell you this. You're going to want to follow it. You're going to want to take the time to learn and understand this. This is a critical part of your business. Again, this is about getting your site to the top of Google. And if it isn't at the very top, I'm not talking the first page, the very top of Google, it's really kind of pointless. I mean, a website is good for, let's say, a brochure, if you will. Say, here, go to my website for this information. That's fine. But if it's about SEO, if it's about getting new customers, unless it's in the top 3, I believe you're wasting your time. So we're going to give you the tools to get that site to the top 3.
Right. And I think everybody knows if you do your own searches, it's not often you go down even halfway down the page, let alone the second or the third page. So, and something that we actually find is when people are further down the page, you may still get some leads, but they're just not that good.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, Jesse.
Yeah.
I mean, really, unless you're at the top, it's again, the leads you get at the bottom are lowest price. They're looking for lowest price. They have some unusual requests that you can't fulfill, and they will chew up your time in that process. And many of us are just happy to get a call off our sites.
Right.
But you'll begin to understand once you go through this process and you're at the bottom of the first page, you're going to get some calls. You're going to get excited about it, which is fine. It's just you're going to find out sooner than later. There's a reason they're calling you, and it's usually because they're a bit of a problem sometimes. Again, all customers are good. Don't get me wrong, but this is kind of, you're going to see a trend forming when you're at the bottom of the first page.
And would you say a lot of times we found, I'm kind of asking a question I already know the answer to, but just to make it a talking point, those people that are calling you, if you're in the 6th, 7th, 8th place, they've already called everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they didn't just scroll down to the bottom and pick you.
Right.
They've gotten no's or unfavorable responses already.
And unless your competition is woefully, inadequate in dealing with customer service issues, again, there's a reason they're calling you, and it's not always a pleasant reason. So we want to shoot for that top 3. Top 3 is a good goal to hit, and don't stop applying these methods. If you're on the first page thinking you've arrived, you just got to keep at it and be diligent, and give it as much attention as you can afford. Again, we're all busy. Allocate that time.
Right.
It's worth it.
So we're going to start today kind of from the ground up, talking about the domain name for your website, how that's strategic, the actual names of the pages that you might create on your website, and some of the details that go into those. We're probably going to have about 3 episodes on this particular topic. We're going to get a little bit deeper into it into the second and the third episode. But again, today we're going to start right from the beginning. So the first part of that is the domain name of your website. So if you already have a domain name, great. I wouldn't change anything. If you already have a website, you can apply the stuff we're going to be talking about to that. If you're in a position where you're going to launch a new website, your first website, second, third, whatever it is, put some strategy into it. Again, something you've heard us say in other episodes, you'll hear us say a lot more, is when it comes to digital marketing, and particularly your SEO, do everything on purpose. Don't just willy-nilly pick a name that sounds cool. One of the key things for being found in Google is keywords and phrases, right? So if you're a plumbing company and you want to be found for plumbing or plumbing services, if possible, make sure your domain name, and maybe even the name of your business, of course, too, make sure, or at least your domain name has the word plumbing services or plumbing service, within it. So if it's bobsplumbingservice.com, Bob's Twin Cities Plumbing Service.com. We're up in Minneapolis, Twin Cities area here. That'd be even better because now you're tying kind of a local geographic phraseology into that along with plumbing service. So not completely necessary to do that, but for sure, when I say that, I mean the geographic reference, not completely necessary, but for sure, some words that are akin to what your main product and service is that you're providing. Some people might be worried, is that going to limit me? Maybe I'm a plumber and I also do some kind of more remodeling stuff, and people aren't just going to call me for plumbing service, or maybe I do, hot water heaters. You don't have to limit your content on your website to the exact keywords that are going to be in your domain name. But obviously, like any business, there's probably some kind of 80-20 rule with the revenue streams that you do have and the products that you sell. And you want to try to make sure you analyze that and pick a domain name that makes sense according to that. There is a school of thought of maybe trying to mash keywords and, again, your geographic reference into your domain name. That can hurt you if you're going to be expanding beyond that, right? So let's take Minneapolis up here in Minnesota. If Bob's going to do bobsminneapolisplumbing.com, but he's also going to be servicing, let's say, St. Paul, which is a suburb, actually a neighboring city. Shouldn't call it a suburb, no offense, St. Paul. But somebody in St. Paul may see it's, bobsminneapolisplumbing.com or what have you, and maybe be a little put out that, he doesn't service this area, even though he's popping up and I'm in St. Paul or another suburb.
And that can play a role in conversion, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's more of what I mean, actually. Thanks for clarifying that, Bob. You may rank well, but people are just going to skip right past you, even if you're in the number one spot, because, that doesn't apply to me. I'm gonna click on the next one.
Yeah, and I'd throw out, too, that as far as choosing a domain name, try not to make it super complicated. So, your prospects or clients are trying to go back to your site, and they're like, what was the domain name again? I mean, the shorter and distinct, the better, in my opinion.
Right.
It sticks in your mind easier. Bob's Crazy Plumbing. That's a bad example, but you know what I mean? Just Bob's Twin City Plumbing or whatever. Now, if you say Bob's Twin City Walleye Fighting Plumbing type of thing, it's just going to make it real difficult for people to keep that in their mind. So as distinct as possible is huge, and whatever you can come up with that, again, sticks in their mind.
Yep. I mean, the number one goal, of course, to get a new customer is to show up in the search engine. But after you get them on the hook, you want them to come back to you. Yeah. So if they can't, for the life of themselves, remember your company name or your domain name, they're going to be going to Google and searching again. Hopefully, if you're doing it right, they find you again. But why leave that to chance? I mean, just make it short and sweet. Another aspect, piggybacking on what you're talking there, Bob, people kind of forget about sometimes is your email address.
Yeah.
Whatever your domain name is, that's going to be your, Jesse at Bob's Crazy Plumbing Walleye Fighting Service.com. That's a mouthful.
Right.
Nobody's going to remember that.
Right.
You're going to get sick and tired of spelling that, repeating that.
Yeah.
Every single time.
If they're dyslexic like me, they're going to misspell it 8 different ways.
Yep.
They'll never get the email through. Hey, did you get my email? And really the problem originates at your email because you made this supercalifragilisticexpialidocious email that nobody is going to be able to type in.
So that part's not necessarily related to SEO, but just kind of a good pro tip that we've learned along the way and helped a lot of customers with, because once you get down that road, you really can't undo it. And you also don't want to have an email address that's got a different domain than your primary company's domain name. You want to keep it consistent across the board. So along with that, with having the crazy long domain name too, is you only have a certain amount of space when you show up on the search engine results page, or the SERP people will call it too, for Google. So if you got a domain that has 30 or 40 characters because it's just so stinking long, you have to remember when you create an actual page on your website too, because Google doesn't just show you websites in the search results. It's showing you individual pages when you're searching for something. So you got to remember the name of your page is going to be attached to your domain name, right? So you kind of want people to see that, because when we quickly glance at the search engine results page, we're making a decision what we're going to click on and hopefully then convert based off what we're seeing. If you can't see, your entire link, or it just doesn't make any sense and people don't want to read it, that's going to be a bad thing. So general rule of thumb, people will say anywhere between 50 to 70 total characters. So if you got a big domain name that's starting off with 30 characters, that can include the www, the dots, and then the .com at the end, right? And any slashes and dashes that are part of it. You're just going to be, asking for trouble for, you might rank decent, but again, for that conversion and what it looks like and things like that. So some people might you try to mash, a bunch of keywords in there and just kind of get it all fit in. That's a bad tactic. That might have worked 10 years ago. But things are just much more sophisticated now, and us as consumers and people using the search engines on the other side of the keyboard, we're kind of wise to that. I think everybody kind of gets a little scared off if you see something that just has too much kind of pounded in there. You know it's spam. So at any rate, that's kind of a good once over for how to choose a domain name. Again, if you're starting from scratch, take that to heart. If you're already have one, you can work with what you got. If the things that we said make you think that you made a horrible choice, you can start over too. It's not that hard.
And I would tell you too, if you have a competitive advantage in your service and you want to incorporate that in your domain name, you could say 24/7 plumbing service,
right?
Or versus Johnson Brothers Plumbing. There's nothing wrong with either one. It's just what strategy you want to employ. And again, a name like 24/7 Plumbing, might convert better than, let's say, Johnson Brothers, because one is more likely going to pick up the phone for 24/7 plumbing.
Absolutely.
Knowing that, hey, they can take care of my problem.
So. Right. And, that's not overthinking your domain name, quite frankly. That's kind of like picking the name for your business, right? There should be some strategy involved with this. It should be kind of a big decision, because that's going to be, the virtual address, if you will, of what people remember for your business going forward. So give it some thought. If you're kind of stumped, if you need a little muse, some creativity to spark you, do some searching online. Go, if you're in Minneapolis like us, try searching in St. Louis or Houston or different markets for the kind of phrases you'd want to show up. See what other people are doing. Again, are they putting 24/7 in there? Are they putting their name? Bob and Sons. I mean, what are other people doing that are ranking high? What speaks to you? And just kind of go off some examples. Yeah. Like we always say, there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. There's millions of websites. Probably over 100 markets in the United States alone that have hundreds of thousands of people in there. You can trust kind of that crowdsourcing vibe, if you will.
And your customers will tell you, or you can ask people. You can't ask them which one of these sounds best. I would say, hey, if you had a car that was broken down, would you want it to say, Honest Auto Repair or 24/7 hour?
Give it some context.
Yeah, just and serve it up that way, and then get feedback from people, and that should point you in the direction you want to go.
Right. Absolutely. So let's move on. And again, like we just said earlier, when you search for something on Google or Bing, or if people still use Yahoo or Ask Jeeves, or I don't know if you have any other Excite. There's some old ones out there. You're not just getting shown websites, you're getting shown web pages. So the next part of it is, let's say you got your website up, you got your domain picked out. Now you're creating pages, individual pages for your website. Each one of those is going to have a name. Depending on if you're doing a traditional HTML website, maybe WordPress, Squarespace, any of these kinds of platforms, you're going to have somewhere where you have to put the name of your page on there. Sometimes then where you put the name for your page will automatically be coded into the URL extension of what that's going to be online. Sometimes you have to physically enter that in. Sometimes you have to manually enter that in yourself. Take that same kind of logic for picking the domain name for what you're going to name your pages, right?
Yeah.
So if you got a page, let's say if your general domain is bobsplumbingservice.com and you want to create a page for 24/7 plumbing service or emergency plumbing service, things like that, obviously put that right in the title. Like Bob's saying, if you're going to be seeing that on results page, that's going to convert. You're looking for 24/7. You don't want to have people wait to click on your page and see you're about 24/7 service. They want to see that right in the domain name extension, so they kind of make that immediate connection with you and what they're looking for. That's on the conversion side to get people to click to you from the results page. Obviously, if people are searching literally for the phrase 24/7 plumbing, near me or things like that, that's where the SEO comes in. So the words that you choose to give a title and a name to your page are going to be part of that URL extension. Those individual words are relevant for showing up in the search engines. If Bob and I have, let's say, identical websites, all things being equal, if I'm using 24/7 in my phrase for that page and Bob's not, he's just saying great plumbing service for the name of his page, if you're searching for 24/7 plumbing, mine's going to show up over Bob's just
Right.
because it had that phrase in the title URL for that page in the name. So kind of same school of thought there. If you're unsure of what you should be going after, do some research. And we should put an asterisk by this too. If you're sitting down right now and you're creating a new web page, and let's say it's in WordPress, you hit publish, right? It's online. The entire world can now find that page. Maybe you had a typo. Maybe you got a better idea. You want to change it right now? Go ahead and change it. I mean, you've got hours, if not a day or two, to kind of make that change. So I guess to put that asterisk of you're going to make that change. If it's a page you've had out there for a month or even a week,
Yeah, that's more difficult.
yeah, then I'd be a little bit more leery about doing it. I mean, effectively, I guess a good rule of thumb, just to make it clear, is the longer the page has been existing and published, the more dangerous it is to change it, especially if it's a page that's already ranking in search engines or getting some kind of traction. So an alternative method for that is to actually create a new page, right? So if your old page is already out there and it's maybe a situation where you think it's too late to change it or maybe too dangerous to change it, you can create a new page. Now, you don't want to duplicate that old page,
Right.
because then you're going to be facing some duplicate content issues with Google. But hopefully, if it's your business, you kind of know how to write/talk about your business, and you can just whip up a new page that's more topical and name it whatever you want to name it. So I guess long story short, there are options, if you do want to change the URL of your page and the title of your page, but just kind of take those things into consideration. So
Do you want to move on to page titles at this point, or
yeah,
have we covered everything on page names?
yeah, let's talk about page titles. We can definitely move on to that. So
What's the difference between the two, the page names, page titles?
yeah, at least for what we're talking about, for our context, when we say the page name, we're talking about the actual what the URL is going to end up for navigating to the page, right? So intrix.com/show, right? The /show part would be the name of the page.
Okay.
Now your title is something people might call it like a meta title, META title. And that's going to be something that's more coded into the website. Again, depending on what platform you're using, if you're using WordPress or things like that, you can just type that in and it'll inject that meta title in there for you. And an easy way to see what that title is if you're ever on a website, let's say if you're using Google Chrome, you can kind of hover over the tab that might be open for that website, and sometimes you see a bunch of text kind of open up at the top there. That's the title. Okay, so that's one of the most important things for a search engine. They see that, they'll parse out the
critical.
keywords.
So title's critical.
Absolutely. Whereas your name, you might want to kind of keep that short and sweet, again, for the number of characters that are in that entire URL for that page. Your title, you can have a little bit more liberty with, and maybe mash in a couple more keywords or maybe expand that phrase a little bit to be more descriptive. But you are limited there to, maybe, again, as some people say, 72, maybe 120 characters or less. You don't have to use all that up.
Yeah.
The rule of thumb is definitely the shorter the better. You don't want to put stuff in there that just makes it long, forces people to read more and think more. People just don't like to do that. But the page title is something that's also going to show up on the search engine results page. In the show notes, we'll put in some snippets to kind of point this out, a little diagram that shows you what the title is, what the URL is, things like that. And then the next topic, which is going to be description, which is also very important. But the page title, I would say, back to what Bob was talking about earlier, to make people convert and to click, that's where you can really put maybe a little bit of your T's and your call to action, right? Or what makes you different. Back to the example of the 24/7 plumbing. What types of services, right? Residential, commercial. I mean, kind of expand on that a little bit. Again, keeping in mind, doing everything on purpose. Everything that you're typing in there should be for the purpose of attracting customers, attracting searchers, and
Converting
enticing them. Yeah.
So let me ask you a quick question. So in the page title, again, one of the ways you could do it is you could say emergency 24/7 plumbing, or this is probably not a good example because you'd probably want to set up a separate page for hot water heaters, for instance.
Right.
When you think about plumbing emergencies, hot water heaters are probably one of them, right? And again, if I were running this website, I'd have a whole separate page for hot water heaters.
Yep.
But getting back to just the idea of 24/7 plumbing, probably part of the title again is either emergency 24/7 plumbing or something along that lines as far as
Absolutely.
the title.
Google has came out in the recent weeks and announced that you can go after basically two keywords, right? Two keyword phrases more broadly per page. So maybe your main focus for that page is 24/7 plumbing. Emergency is kind of synonymous with 24/7 to an extent, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the same customer at least looking for it. So absolutely, you can. That'd be a great example of how to expand on that topic a little bit, adding the keyword of emergency, or after hours, or just things like that. And definitely would want to stay topical. Like I said, don't start getting into hot water heaters and specific things, because the great part about a website, you can create as many pages as you want.
Right.
And quite frankly, the more pages you create, the better, which is a whole nother topic. But yeah, I would say get creative with that. Put some things that you think are going to convert. If you have prices, like if you know it's X per hour or free estimates, let's say for plumbing, right, or things like that, put that stuff right in there too, because again, people are going to see. There's two main things there, really, to break it down at the end of it, just to make it super simple.
Yeah.
You're putting these words in there for Google to identify you, to say, okay, this is the kinds of things that they want to show up for. And then you're putting those words in there for people to convert, to go off of Google, to click on it, off of Google, onto your website. So write that with the kind of keywords and the things you want to be found for, but a real person is going to be the one ultimately deciding your fate with this, if they click on your link or not. So,
Right.
And with that too, speaking towards the human element of it, Google's going to see the entire page title. If it's 3 characters or 155 characters, doesn't matter. They're going to be able to read and see the whole thing. Now us human users, depends on the device that we're using. How much we're going to see on the screen. How much is Google going to cut off and give us like some dots? If you're on a desktop and you got a really nice wide screen, you're going to see a lot more
Right.
of that text than you are if you're on mobile, and you just see a little snippet of it. Reason that's relevant is make sure your message reads from left to right, for importance of that, right? So don't bury the lead, as they say for copywriting. If 24/7, plumbing service is the thing that you're putting this page out there for, they don't really care that it's Bob's Plumbing or things like that. I mean, lead with 24/7 plumbing by Bob's Plumbing, right? Not Bob's Plumbing proudly serving the area with 24/7 plumbing services. Pretty good chance that last part, the 24/7, which is really what you're trying to hammer on here, is getting it cut off on the search engine results page, and the users aren't going to see that. Even if Google has you number 1, if the guy right under or the gal right under you has 24/7 plumbing as their lead, for their text, even if they're number 2, people are going to probably click on that if that's what they're looking for.
So when they list the page, there's a blue descriptor at the
Yeah.
top. Okay, is that the same as page titles, or are we talking about? So what I was going to throw out there is, as far as page title,
Let's take a look.
can you put 24/7 plumbing, $99 an hour?
Yeah.
So because that would ideally would be right up there, 24/7, $99 an hour. So people are talking time and money, right?
Yep.
I'm out of time. I only got so much money.
Correct.
If you can convert on those things, might be a good thing, right?
Absolutely. Those watching on video, you can see on the screen behind us, I just did a quick Google search for 24/7 plumbing. So it's just pulling up some local results around us. But this is what Bob's talking about. So you see the biggest text there that's blue, that's the page titles, right? So emergency commercial plumbing services 24/7 Roto-Rooter. If they had a price point that they wanted to put on there, they could just tack that somewhere right in that phrase, and instantly as a user, I'm going to know it's emergency 24/7 and it's $99, right?
Right.
Or $2.99 or whatever it's going to be. Depending on what else I see on here, that's going to make me convert or not. And again, when we say convert, we mean click to the website, not so much convert to a customer, because we're going from Google to your website,
Right.
in this context. And again, I would say, when in doubt, do the research, right? So we can see on here, we just did a quick search. We got a couple results with some similar text, some things a little bit different. But try different markets. What are other people doing? What are they saying? And put yourself on the other side of the keyboard. Put yourself in the shoes of that searcher. Do some searches and say, what would be attracted to me? We got one example here. Katie-plumber.com.
Just another WordPress
Yeah,
site.
Katie, if you're out there listening to this, give us a call. We can help you out. right there in the title, it starts off great, 24/7 plumbing services, and then goes dash, just another WordPress site. That right there is a default title. That's part of an out-of-the-box WordPress website.
Right.
Obviously, I'm assuming it's a she, Katie, is doing something right because this is the first page. I mean, we just randomly did a search, scroll down, and it's right there. That being said, this is an example of somebody that could definitely use a little help to convert those customers. Even though you're showing up great, some people might be skipping right over you because it looks like it's unfinished.
Well, she's number 3 position, right? Naturally.
Yep.
So that just tells you, this isn't too hard to do.
Right.
Just got to do some things right, and you're going to be, at the very least, hopefully beating out Katie. No offense.
Right.
In terms of your market.
If you're out there thinking, God, there's just so many plumbing websites out there already. If this is the example, of course. Does it even matter if I do it? I mean, how am I going to get traction? There's already people that have already done this before me. What could I possibly do to get myself ranked? Well, here you go. You can do something better than Katie.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
You can trump that. So don't be discouraged, even if you're starting from your website right now today after this episode. If you just start it fresh, if you do it the right way, from day one, you're going to have great results. We're in Minneapolis. We're in a suburb right here, but we're in a major market. I mean, this is legitimate competition. We got Roto-Rooter. We had some Ben Franklin up there. The blue text you see on the top, that is the page titles. Right under that, what we were just talking earlier, that's the actual URL in the name of the pages. So again, you want to be cognizant of what you're putting on there. You can see there's a couple examples. Back to Katie Plumber. What we're seeing here is the homepage for that website. Right under it for this ars.com, Emergency Plumbing Services, we're seeing a page. Right. That's not the home page. It's not just the .com. It's got an extension, emergency-plumbing-services. So in this case here, like we were talking earlier, we did a search for 24/7. Google's obviously pretty intelligent now with their algorithm, way better than they were a couple years ago. They know that if I'm searching for 24/7, kind of synonymous with emergency, right? So this ARS, they didn't even have to put in their name or title there. You can see the words 24/7 or the phrases relating to 24/7. Google sees that on their page in some other spot, equates it with emergency, and they're showing up on the results page. Not number one, but still worthy to note that phraseology wasn't even in these key areas for their 24/7. So
yeah, for my money, I'd throw my price out there. Just again, I can't stress enough as a consumer, if I'm in a hurry and that's the price point I'm going to pay, it's like I'm going to click on these guys first, because if all things are the same, they all look the same, and I see a price point, it's worth trying.
Well, and that's kind of why we're searching, right?
Right.
Instead of calling or picking up a magazine or the local newspaper and going off some ads, we want to make as much of the decision as possible before we actually engage with that dreaded salesperson or receptionist on the other end. You know what I mean? So if you can know what the price is ahead of time, I mean, that just helps you make that decision, and you're more likely to attract to that. And seeing up here too, this brings up a good point. So we're talking about the natural listings here, the natural ads, which everybody probably knows. But just to reiterate, if you start at the top of the page and come down, the first 3 are usually going to be the pay-per-click ads. They'll say sponsored or ad next to it, so it's pretty easy to tell. But we were talking about doing some research. If you're not sure what to do, or you're not sure what looks good, or things like that, do some searches. And maybe your market, different markets, doesn't matter. But if you look at this here, like Bob's saying, to put your price right in there, it's not exactly listing the price. But on our example here, the third ad down, Roto-Rooter 24/7 plumbers, and they put right in there $50 off any service. Now that is a paid ad, but still, you have that ability to do that exact technique when you're creating your web page, not having to be a paid ad. So whether it's a coupon in this case, or as Bob was saying, listen your labor rate or your estimate rate or whatever the on-call rate is, putting that rate in there, that's attractive and disruptive. Not everybody's doing it. So moving on to the next kind of high relevant area for search engine optimization is your page description. And again, this would be meta description, technically, META description. And what that means is it's kind of in the coding of the website. Again, if you're using a regular HTML website, you might have to hard code that in depending on what kind of theme or system you're using. WordPress, there's usually a spot in the field. You can just type this in. And that's what's going to be in the text that you see here on the page. Again, for those watching the video, you can see me pointing to it. Anybody else on the podcast, check the show notes. We'll have some diagrams, or you can watch the video too at the bottom of the page on the show notes. There's a link for the video. So, but you'll see this snippet of text that Google pulls out for every result that they're showing here. That's usually going to contain your page description that you input. Sometimes Google may override that if they feel there's a snippet of your page content that's more relevant. They'll mix that in. You can see on this particular result here for this Roto-Rooter, we can see some ... So they're kind of paraphrasing and putting some stuff together. Even if they don't show your meta description on the results page, it's still something Google looks at, right? It's not something that people will see on your page when they click on your website. They won't see this description. It's in the background. It's just code for Google to know what your page is about to describe your page. But they will show it on the search engine results page. Okay, so all the things we were talking about earlier apply to this. If you've got pricing you want to communicate, some idiosyncrasies with your service, the speed of service, things like that, go ahead and use those in your description. Again, keywords, what's relevant, things that convert or things that make you rank higher in Google. I mean, you got to talk to the search engine bots. You got to talk to the humans that are going to be reading the page. So there is no guarantee, like I said, that that's what they're going to show. But you just make that assumption that that's going to be visible and out there, and you're going to be in pretty good shape. So,
yeah. I mean, this is where you want to convert, like you were saying, and it's if you've got some unique value proposition that nobody else has, and it's something that wins customers over, you got to put that out there.
Right. These two areas we should note: your page title and then your page description, your meta title and meta description. You can change those whenever you want, right? So earlier we were talking about your page name, which is the link, which again on the video here, the green text. That's something that's kind of dangerous to change. That's Google indexing that page and expecting to find that page at that address every time. When you change that, you can be in trouble. The actual title and the descriptions, though, you can change those, right? So if you're seeing Katie would be a great example right there. That website's going to stay where it's at. You can go in there, change that, and almost instantaneously have something other than just another WordPress site. Probably going to get some more customers as soon as you make that change. It's not going to make a hill of beans difference to Google as far as on a negative impact,
right?
Unless you do something ridiculous. I mean, I should give a disclaimer. People can break things, if they want to.
Right.
But if your intent is to put something in there that's relevant to convert more people, or maybe a keyword to help bump your ranking up even higher, there's going to be no negative impact for changing your title or for changing your description. It's only a good thing. So whether you want to do some A/B testing in that regard, maybe run one version for 3 weeks, kind of see how it's ranking, see what kind of traffic you're getting. If you're getting any people to convert through and call you, go ahead and change it if not, right? So kind of rounding out kind of some of this SEO 101 to kind of get you going. Another area people may be thinking of right now is keywords. So kind of the traditional, 3-part to your web page is meta description, meta title, and then meta keywords. You got to list your keywords, right? Or you got to tag the keywords for the page. That really fell out of favor a couple years ago with Google. You can put them in there right now. Pretty much every web page, if you will, or every method of publishing a website has the ability to still put in keywords for your page. It's a waste of time. Google doesn't look at it anymore. They don't give it any credit. Doesn't help your rankings at all. If you want to do it yourself for maybe organizational purposes or just to kind of identify what you're going after, it's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go out of my way to put them in there, to put some research into it, to how should I do this the best way. It's not going to impact your rankings one bit. It's not anything that's going to be shown on the search engine results page. It's not anything that people see on page when they visit your website. So for all intents and purposes, it's invisible and a waste of time, unless you directly get a benefit yourself for your own management administration. So,
okay.
So taking all that into account, we actually have a really cool tool on our website, which anybody who's listened has heard us talk about at the close of every episode, is our SEO audit tool. So if you already have a website, or maybe you executed some of these steps and you're creating your own new website right now, if you want to do a test to see, what does my description look like, right? What does my title look like? How many characters are in it? Is my keyword in there? Things like that. We have a free SEO audit tool on our website. You can use it as many times as you want. You can use it on as many pages on your website as you want, and you can do as many keyword variations as you want. It's completely free. Just use it over and over. Definitely highly encourage you to do it. We're going to do a real quick tutorial on that and kind of a walkthrough, a real life example. So let's just go back to Katie Plummer here, we'll just pick on her. And Katie, with all the help you've been giving us in the episode today, again, if you're out there, reach out to us. We'll give you some tips here. So grab your address from your website. Let's go into services and just see what we can find quick. So we'll grab, you can do your homepage too. I'm just skipping over that right now. I'm going with a page within the website here, just for our example. So we're going to do katie-plumber.com/services. Copy that URL. Let's just look on here, water leaks. So just kind of a word I'm picking out here. Let's just see how well Katie's website is optimized for water leaks. And you have to enter in your email address. If I can type it. So I'm not going to hit scan yet. I'll explain the two things that are going to happen real quick when we hit scan, just so everybody can be aware. So as soon as we hit scan, it's going to take about 15 seconds, and it's going to do a quick SEO audit on this. It's going to give us a great checklist we'll see. That's going to show up right on the page here, okay? Now you can print that, you can save it from there, but also because you entered in your email address, it's going to instantly email that to you. So don't worry about saving what's going to show up on screen. Don't worry about printing it, although you sure can, because you're going to get a PDF emailed to you with this. You can do whatever the heck you want with it after that.
That's handy.
Yeah, it's really, really slick. And again, if you do this on 17 pages, you're going to get 17 emails. So you can see here, here's what the completed audit looks like. It's going to give you a couple things here, an overall grade. In this case, it's 57%. That's not on the website again, or even that page for the quality. That's a grade against this keyword phrase, which we did water leaks for that page, right? So that's a very specific thing to keep in mind. You know, maybe your page is optimized for a variation of that keyword or something else. We just picked water leaks for this example. But again, the grade is that web page against that keyword phrase that you entered in. That's important to note. Gives you some real quick things up top, how many good signals, bad signals. And then as you scroll down this, it's broken up into categories. Take it from the top down. There's a lot of information that you're going to find on here. Some of them are more relevant than others, but just like anything else, it's that 80-20 rule. You know what I mean? There's what you see above the water on the iceberg and what you see below. For this here, the most important stuff is at the top of the page. Take care of this stuff and then work your way down. And I would even say it's kind of basic to advanced, you know, as you get down the page. So it's set up that way, you know, on purpose. So the important stuff is at the top. You can see a couple quick stats up here, how long it takes to load the page, the size of the page, and how many requests are on the page. That's how many maybe images it's trying to pull from a website, right? Or just JavaScript, or maybe if you have Google Analytics code installed on there, that's how many things it's trying to pull to load the page. For all that, the less the better, right? It's kind of like golf. Lower score is better here in that regard. You want your page to load quicker, and you want to pull from the least amount of spots possible to load quicker. Couple things on here real quick. It's going to tell you this page should load quicker. It says the size is okay, the number of requests is acceptable. Like we were talking earlier, the URL that says this URL is SEO friendly. It's mainly saying that because the construct of it, the size of it, you know, things like that. It's just kind of giving a general statement. Exact keyword not found in this URL. So like we were saying earlier, this would be the name of that page, right?
Right.
So this is katie-plumber.com/services. We're doing a audit against water leaks. If it would be katie-plumber.com/water leaks, it would have been an exact match in that URL. Okay.
But that's not a deal killer, right? In terms of,
it's not a deal killer, but it would tell me if this was my website and if I was really wanting to be optimized for water leaks, I should create a page about water leaks.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because I'm going to want that exact keyword found in my URL. Not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But again, if you're competing against somebody else, all things being equal,
right,
it's something that you're going to want to
have.
have.
But to that end, you're not going to create a page for everything, but ideally you're going to create a page for your top 10 or 20.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. So we'll just scroll down to the next couple sections, and then I'm going to fast forward to the end of it here for you guys. Title tag and description tag, that was the things we were talking about earlier there, right? Your meta title, your meta description. So what it's doing here on the audit is, again, scoring that against the keyword phrase that we entered in. So it's saying here, the title tag should contain the keyword. Again, if you remember Katie's website, it's just another WordPress site. Obviously not water leaks, you know, on that. Title tag should begin with the keyword. We were talking about that earlier as well. You're going to want to put that stuff on the front side. Google takes that as a signal of how important it is, reading from left to right for the phrases and keywords you're putting in. Likewise, us human users read that in that same way.
Right.
And you don't want it to get cut off on a smaller size screen. The way Google really looks at things nowadays as compared to a couple years ago is kind of through a human eye. The user interface, how friendly it is for mobile, if it's on a mobile search, desktop, if it's on desktop, they take that into account. It's not just, the coding or the architecture of it. They really bring that user experience into their relevancy scores for what pages rank higher than others. So last two things on here for the description tag. Same thing there. Description tag needs the exact keyword. And in this case, description tag should be less than 160 characters. Mentioned that earlier. That's no exact rule that you have to abide by, but it's kind of a best practices for everybody. Again, if it's over 160 or if it's 85, you're not going to get crucified for anything. But that's definitely some boundaries that you want to stay within. So the rest of the audit we'll get into in some future episodes. But scroll on down. There's tons of great information in here. It tells you what words are used on your page, how frequently they're used. Headings, H1, H2, H3 tags, which are very important. We're going to get into that next episode specifically. And a lot of your page loading and social integrations and things like that, which are definitely relevant, even more relevant today and every day going forward. That kind of stuff is carrying a lot more weight. So,
what would be a good score, Jess? I mean, they got a 57. What's acceptable or heading in the right direction?
We kind of usually feel 80% or higher. I wouldn't be expecting to get 100% or 98% because there's a lot of...
Then you own Google.
Yeah, right. Then they just give it to you. Yeah, right. It's yours. No, there's a lot of like highly technical, pretty geeky stuff to break into that 90s and high 90s percentages. Quite frankly, here, KatiePlumber.com was the third result I think in our example.
Yeah.
And it's not the most optimized, right? So it's gonna the question there for your answer. What do you want to be? Well, you want to be ranking high, right? If you're doing better than your competition, which, by the way, is actually a great thing to point out here, you can run this audit on anything. It doesn't have to be just your website. You can run your competition's web pages through this too if you want to kind of reverse engineer them or gain some insights there. It doesn't have to be your domain. It has to be your email, so you can get the PDF emailed to you, right?
Right.
That's the only caveat.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you run this on. It's all for your own benefit. So, but yeah, I would shoot for a goal of 80% or higher, with the caveat on that being that you're working from the top of the page down. If you're not doing some of those things at the top of the page for your titles, your descriptions, and things of that nature, but you are worrying about some of the social stuff down at the bottom, again, I wouldn't expect you to have as good a results as if you focused, top down on this audit here. If you get up into the 90s, I'd say you're in really, really good shape because now you're hitting on some of the architecture and the coding of the website and the usability, and you should be ranking pretty good.
So it's a combination of things. Obviously, it's a combination of your how you're scoring, right? 57%, let's say. But if your competition isn't that stiff and they're all around 50%, you could almost dominate or do very well. Obviously, you want to shoot for 70 or 80. It's just a matter of time before people catch up to you.
Exactly.
But here again, it goes back to the fact that this is not rocket science. You just put some effort into it, and it's not going to happen overnight. Yep. But if you put consistent effort into it over 6 months to a year, you're going to gain knowledge that's never going to go away, really, to some extent. But it's going to do nothing but grow your business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much hitting it on the head. Really, at the end of the day, take action. Right. Don't overthink it. Don't overanalyze it. You can change anything. Some's easier to change, right, and less dangerous to change than others here. But get it out there. Get a website, get it online. If you already have a website, run this audit. Start making some changes, working top down. Slow and steady progress is gonna win the race. And definitely, like you were saying earlier, if you can be better than your competition, and you still have room to optimize to get that score up, definitely do it. To be a leader, you want to get there first,
Right.
and stay ahead of everybody else, right? So
Yeah, and I want to reinforce too. This is what we do, right?
Absolutely.
This is what we do. Now, why are we giving this away? Well, we feel, everybody has to start somewhere, and these are tools that you can start. But at some point in time, if you want to hand this off to an organization like us or
Yep.
anybody else, you better know what they're doing for you.
Yep.
Is the idea. You don't need to know everything, but they're just saying, yeah, we're working on it.
Yep.
What exactly are you working on? Because $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 goes like that.
Yep.
And when it's gone, it's gone.
Right.
And we're trying to give you the tools to have enough to be dangerous if you don't want to do it yourself.
Yep.
So when an organization comes in like us and says, hey, we're going to do this, this, and this, you have no idea what we're talking about, but now you do.
Right.
And you should see some gradual change and get to that top position. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I would say if you're in that position where maybe you have an agency already doing some of this work for you, still run your pages.
Right.
Do this audit. Run some other work. If you're going to make a decision, you're entertaining some local company to do your SEO, get their portfolio. Run this kind of a tool through their portfolio of work that they've done. See how they score. You're going to get a real good taste of what they're capable of.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And what's happening. So, I guess last point I want to make too is we talked a few more. Last point I want to make is we talked a few times on this episode about doing some research to see what competitors are doing in your market or even in other markets. Again, you can run this audit on those pages too, right? If you stumble across a website that spoke to you really good on your Google search results page that made you want to click, and then you got to their website and you said, this is pretty cool. Run this audit against that to see under the hood, what they're doing, and kind of give you some benchmarks and some insights onto how you might be able to do it yourself too.
Isn't that a little bit evil?
Only if you use it for evil purposes, Bob.
All right.
So that's pretty much it for today's episode. Again, go out intrix.com/show. Check out the show notes for diagrams and how-tos and everything we did here. While you're there, top right corner, click on the free SEO audit, and you're going to get this instant audit on any page that you want. Use it wisely. Use it for good.
Yes.
And
Use your powers for good.
right. That's probably it.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Yeah. See you next week.